Welcome to another VeVe Digital Collectibles comic breakdown. I'm Corey with VeVe, and today I get to celebrate one of my favorite fandoms, Star Wars. That's right, the next comic coming to us is releasing from Lucasfilm, and it's Star Wars Thrawn #1. And what a timely release, given Grand Admiral Thrawn is set to make his live-action debut in Ahsoka, as revealed at the Star Wars Celebration fan convention in London. And this comic was the first of a 6-part series, and it introduced to us one of the most cunning and ruthless minds in Star Wars, Grand Admiral Thrawn. And today we're going to talk about the character, this comic, and his importance to Star Wars. But first, let's go over the drop details. Star Wars Thrawn #1 is releasing on Friday, May 5th at 8 a.m. Pacific time, minting 10,000 editions across the 5 rarities. This comic will have a retail price of 6.99 gems. We'll talk about each of the covers and the artist attributions later in this breakdown video. Before that, let's get into the history. For lovers of all things Star Wars, you're immediately going to recognize those striking red eyes and blue skin. Grand Admiral Thrawn, introduced first in 1991 in Timothy Zahn's novel Heir to the Empire, is one of the most tactically brilliant and feared minds that the Empire had ever produced. For those of you who don't religiously read Star Wars novels, Thrawn became more mainstream and was popularized in the highly successful and critically acclaimed Star Wars Rebels animated television series, which is available for streaming on Disney+. Much like Zahn's novel characterization, the Thrawn we'd see in that animated series understood that the best way to defeat an enemy was to understand their culture and history. In this way, you could think like your enemy and predict their behaviors. This was a different way of thinking, especially for an Imperial, and to put this character's value into perspective, Emperor Palpatine viewed Thrawn as an equal to Darth Vader, a character we have on the platform already in collectible form, in terms of Thrawn's usefulness to the Empire. In the comic we're looking at today, Star Wars Thrawn #1 would give us the comic origins and backstory of the character. Published on February 14th of 2018 with a story by Jody Houser and art by Luke Ross, this story adapted elements of the 2017 prose novel Thrawn by Timothy Zahn and adapted it into comic goodness. We'd see the time before Thrawn was a Grand Admiral and before he was even a member of the Empire. We'd see the time where he was in exile amongst his own people, the Chiss, a species so unique and unknown they were believed by many to be a myth. Following the events of Zahn's novel Thrawn, we would see the character meet with Emperor Palpatine for the very first time and pledge his allegiance. He'd also state that he had met Anakin Skywalker and had hoped that he would meet the warrior again. And you can feel the dramatic irony as you look at this scene unfold in the comic. The Emperor states Anakin Skywalker did not survive the war, yet the specter of Vader looms in the background. This connection between Anakin Skywalker and Thrawn is an essential element of their combined story, and the Emperor knew of their connection and of the legendary species from which Thrawn comes from. Thus, the Emperor did what any good leader would do when presented with raw, untapped potential. He fast-tracked Thrawn into the Royal Imperial Academy and set the wheels of fate into motion. Thrawn would put his tactical prowess and immense intellect to use. Faced with Imperial bigotry toward alien species, a language barrier, and an entirely new way of living, Thrawn rose to the challenge, besting all obstacles in his path. Ultimately, we learn an essential element of what makes this character tick, and that's the credo of his species. Chiss do not make idle boasts or promises. Once they set their minds to something, they succeed or die in the attempt. There's a lot more to this story, but I won't spoil it. By the end of it, you're going to have a lot of questions, like what's Thrawn's master plan, and why would he so willingly pledge himself to the Empire? To find those answers, you can read the novels or these comics. Speaking of, let's chat about the artist editions and 5 rarities releasing on VeVe. First, the common main cover is minting 6,000 editions. With a cover by Paul Renaud, this variant is based on the standard trade cover that was released with the comic. The artwork shows us Thrawn in his natural environment before he joined the Empire. Our introduction to the character would reveal that even as a lone individual, he was more than capable of not only annihilating a whole series of Imperial troops single-handedly, but also stowing aboard their vessel as they fled. Next, the uncommon animation variant is minting 2,250 editions. This rarity is based on the physical 1:10 ratio variant that was released at the same time as the standard comic. Ratio variants, for those of you unfamiliar, means that for every 10 standard comics a vendor ordered, they received one of these. Rarities. The cover features Thrawn as he appeared in the Star Wars Rebels animated series, which you should really watch on Disney Plus if you haven't already. The rare Luke Ross #2 variant is minting 1,000 editions. This cover and the ultra rare are both sampled from the inside of the comic itself, and since the artist was Luke Ross, these variants can be attributed to him as well. Here's the page and panel this is being sourced from. After picking apart those Imperial scouting parties, Thrawn donned stormtrooper armor and stowed away on their ship, a pivotal moment that would alter Star Wars canon forever. Next, the ultra rare Luke Ross #1 variant is minting 500 editions. This is another interior panel selection, and here's the panel it's being sourced from. This specific panel was the first time in a comic Thrawn would voice his name. Of course, Thrawn is the simplified, basic version of his name. His real name is Mithra Naruto. We won't talk about how many times I tried to voice that, and I hope I got it right. We gotta thank Thrawn for giving us an alternate name to use in our basic tongue. Finally, the secret rare Francesco Mattina variant is minting 250 editions, based on the 50-to-1 ratio variant by the immensely talented Mattina. This comic's real-world value eclipses all the other variants that were released alongside it. Between the beautiful rendering of Thrawn and the limited number produced, the comic this cover is referencing has become the variant version collectors go after in the physical world. And it's easy to see why, as Mattina's stylized yet realistic rendering highlights the angular and uniquely alien facial features of Thrawn beautifully. And that's a wrap for this breakdown video. Best of luck if you decide to go for this one. I love May because May means lots of Star Wars announcements and lots of Star Wars things to collect, especially here on VeVe. What are your favorite Star Wars characters? And what Lucasfilm Star Wars comics would you like to add to your collections on VeVe? Let me know down in the comments. And until the next breakdown video, keep learning, sharing, and collecting what you love. This is Corey with VeVe, signing off.